Continuing reading and commenting on what I'm reading. Consciousness takes another quantum leap as each person chooses to become the dance of life at each stage of development. Those who choose to become the dance are able to own their part of the emergence of consciousness. In community, they become part of the team. They communicate, share their resources, help improve each other's position in life, and begin to infuse more love, integrity, faith, hope, and charity into the world. They discover the living principles by which life works and consciousness emerges. They sense their part in everything and accept the reality of their connectedness to everyone, everywhen, and everywhere. What naturally emerges is a global standard of relating and doing business. The old culto bureaucrats, don't know what that means, political thieves, who steal money without service, and the endless bribes that it takes to get things done are being exposed. Respect for human rights, fair labor practices, and new international laws on human rights are being developed. I got bullshit on that one too. I don't think they're developing that at all. This is what we need to work on. What has emerged is an immense new power base. This new power base has both money and great influence. I call this new power base the E-Fellows. They roam the electronic network like a great growing herd of buffalo. On the internet, E-Fellows invest money where the grass is green. In other words, they will not tolerate cultos of any kind. They demand universal accounting practices. They insist that everything about the business be revealed. This new transparency destroys corruption. It increases internal and external integrity and makes business possible on an international level. Now, in one form, this is very much true. That E-Fellows, it's like us YouTube channels, it's like WikiLeaks, hackers, um, uh, Fortran, which we perceived always was a negative group. That group caused chaos. And what was chaos for? To break down these thieves that just want to steal your money. If they act in anger, one of their philosophies is we will never forget and we will never forgive. If they keep that up, they turn into their enemies. They will turn into the new thieves. But if we can do this whole process properly, we would unfold change. Only those who adopt the new standards survive in the new world. They become the new dance. Those who choose not to become the dance detach into a form of rationalization or emotional indulgence. They compromise themselves and fortify themselves into belief systems that are enclosed and capable of unscrupulous behavior. They dance on the dark side of life, smothered in downdraft dynamics. Life becomes an unrelenting frame of self-justification as the herd of follows stampedes away to greener fields. Basically, you know what? Evil can be outlived. Just don't play the evil game, and evil will destroy itself. They will kill themselves with their own diseases that they choose to live by, but you can't be playing their dance. You can't be their victim. Once a person chooses to give life energy to one's body, unfolds one potential, commit to an intimate relationship, take action in community, and become aligned with living principles of successful life, they are prepared to take the next vital step in the emergence of consciousness. They can choose to extend into new event horizons, or they can choose not to extend. For those who extend, they become holodynamic. Holodynamic people are aware of whole dynamics. They develop a deep reverence for all forms of life. They have a shared sense of the part they play in the entire dance and find themselves going for it. There is a level of vitality, an ongoing state of creativity and intimacy and synergy that is so filled with integrity, so all-encompassing that there are few words that can describe it. It is oneness. It is wholeness. It is the state of being personally attuned to every dimension of life. It is being effective, responsible, responsive, responsible, attuned, and coherent with life. The key choice is in how one chooses to extend oneself. In one sense, it is the process of globalization of the self. In another sense, it is the choice to globalize others. Those who extend their consciousness to include the entire network of consciousness become real. They become one. They return home. They reconnect. Those who choose not to extend themselves into wider horizons lock their energies into a field too small to contain themselves. Without new horizons, they soon downdrift their energies, become aloof, detach, and aggrandize within their own private, closed information systems. It is this closing offer, becoming locked into their own aggrandizement, I don't know that word, that creates the nesting place for tyrants and terrorists. This is where the great inhuman deeds are bred, and if you trace back into the history of such tyrants as Genghis Khan, Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, and the like, you will almost certainly find a series of choices that led to their condition in life. From this miserable enclosed of self-aggrandizement, I don't understand that word, comes mankind's inhumanity to mankind. Every event horizon has a critical choice point where the event horizon expands outwards and or collapses inwards. This seems true of all event horizons, of all information systems. We cannot find any permanently closed event horizon among those who had drug abuse problems or among the criminal insane, the mentally ill, gang members, corporate leaders, terrorists, military leaders, or religious fundamentalists. In these and other cases, people were universally responsive to their own emerging consciousness. Information tends to stay in its present form as holodynes within an event horizon until acted upon by outside influences. Consciousness emerges into an expanding event horizon according to an implicit order. It is progressive. It emerges according to patterns. These patterns are hardwired into human consciousness all over the world. The levels of consciousness chart, page 137, outlines in brief these patterns. Consciousness begins to manifest first as a physical reality. It must have physical form in order to develop. The human body is a visible physical form of the consciousness of you and me and all humans. This is the first level of consciousness in its dimension of time and space. It is physical. This does not mean the consciousness itself is limited to the space-time continuum. It means it is manifested here first in physical form. You are manifested. And what your body is, the shape, the color of your eyes, the color of your hair, everything is a reflection of what's inside you. The other unfolded dimensions of consciousness can be seen if one looks. The body, for example, grows according to the patterns established within the DNA. DNA is like your blueprint. It has all of the information that makes you have the color of eyes that you have. And your DNA, as I've explained in lots of other videos, that it's your thoughts. Whatever thoughts you have to have an emotion. You don't think in words or text, you think in chemical experiences. Those chemical experiences are peptides and proteins that you put words to the experience, to the emotion, to the wave experience that you have. And you form, the wave experience, you transform it into that particle, logical left brain. It's like right brain is emotions, left brain is logic. So you think in emotions, you think with heart. The right brain controls the heart as well. That's kind of interesting. So for you to have blue eyes like I have a genetic history that says, according to this rule, this should happen and that should happen. How I see my world is based on the chemical experiences of my genetics. And it's really odd that we've had experiments on prejudice that involve blue eyes and brown eyes. And it's kind of relevant because it is DNA. Anyways, the body, for example, grows according to the patterns established within the DNA. The growth of anyone's DNA strings appears as a coiling ladder that grows into its form. As we look closely at this growing process, the hyperspatial dimensions unfold. DNA molecules grow because of the spinners that orchestrate the growth pattern in very specific ways. This orchestration is hyperspatial. Two spinners appear exactly at the points to which the coil must grow and direct its growth. They orchestrate the bridge, and then two more spinners occur at exactly the next point needed. The chart on 137 reads from left to right. We start with physical form because life begins here, in this dimension, a physical form. One more thing I wanted to make a point on DNA that proves this concept, that identical twins will have practically identical DNA. After they live 50 years, have a lot of different thoughts, a lot of different experiences, and test their DNA, completely different. It's not as similar as when they're first born. So life experiences do change your DNA. So we can transform into something completely different if we have a completely different thought. Physical form takes on personality as consciousness emerges. As personality develops, then conscious patterns governing relationship systems, principles, and universal well-being also emerges. Each has its own holodynes, event horizons, states of being. How consciousness emerges depends upon not only conscious choice, but on which process of information governs the choice, rational, emotional, or holodynamic. Each choice has its own consequences, and each stage is sequential. A person born in deprivation can choose to live or not to live. This choice is primary to the unfolding of life potential at every stage of development. Even a business may start out needing capital. Someone, perhaps the team, must decide whether the business lives or dies. The same is true with the relationships or the potential of any set of circumstances. Someone must decide if it lives or dies. It is the choice to downdraft the dynamics, then the deprivation of holodynes takes control. Which is pretty interesting that I was on the Dragon's Den, and the Dragon's Den decided that this bottled intention idea should die. that they claimed it was the worst idea that they've ever had. Now, I can be influenced by a bunch of rich, greedy people that call themselves dragons, that we are now seeing dragon people as these elites controlling our society. You know, like, do I really want to listen to their opinion of what is a dumb idea? Or would I assume that anything they think is really dumb is actually a really good idea right now? If we follow, you know, what these greedy people say is a good idea, do you think that that might be, you know, encouraging a global collapse? Because how well is their ideas working for them so far? The globe is collapsing, probably because of the way they believe what's right and what's wrong. So, anyways, once started, downdraft holodynes tend to persist on their initial path. If the deprivation holodynes persist, the unfolding of potential at the next level of development will be limited by the event horizon of the deprivation holodynes. The belief in deprivation, or whatever pattern is set, spreads from one level of development to the next. In a world ruled by deprivation holodynes, every level of development will be influenced by those deprivation holodynes. After all, one must deny even their own potential in a world of deprivation. It is consistent and information will always tend to try to make it consistent as long as it remains linear. That's where I think this bottled intention comes in, because I was living that poverty, I'm deprived life, but since I started drinking this water, abundance and prosperity, especially when you feel what it feels like to be prosperous and abundant, then you feel like you're rich all the time, and things just, everything that I need, I get attracted. Want a computer, I showed you how I attracted that. A house, an airbrush, I mean, anything that I want, it's there, as soon as I ask for it, or be grateful for it. I'll continue on another tape.